So I think we'll have just time for a couple of questions. We have an urgent question there.
Bonjour, Michel Hélas, Triangle 7.
Thank you, Michel Hélas, Triangle 7, from Mr. Mansoudai. You spoke about fertilizing trees that replace fertilizers. So these seem to be some very surprising and extraordinary trees. Could you tell me more about them? What are their effects on the soil and on harvests?
Yeah, in the back there.
Actually, it's Ingrid Prim from the German Development Corporation, GIZ. Actually, it's not a question, just a brief comment, as it was already mentioned by Leonard Mitzi at the beginning, that Germany is very open to the concept of agroecology. I just wanted to deepen and say that Germany is really committed to agroecology, and I think this will be deepen and will be a big issue for us. Actually, there are discussions ongoing on how to get to a kind of action plan, how to mainstream this into the German development portfolio. And as you maybe know, our German ministry, BMZ, is spending 1.5 billion euro annually. It's investing in food security and agriculture. So this is a way forward for us, for the German Development Corporation as well. And obviously trying to look up and join efforts with other initiatives ongoing. So briefly, a comment from our side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for that contribution. And indeed, it is a relatively recent development and a very encouraging one. So we hope that this will be reflected also in other countries. One more comment there.
Bonne année à tous. Happy New Year. I'm the private advisor of Mrs. Garcia, who's the CEO of Dignity Service. Nous avons lancé en 2019 une plateforme de...
In 2019, we launched a development progress, a development cooperation platform, and thank you to the ACP and the CTA for helping us to identify projects. With 5 billion from private funds, we're working in 4 territories: West Africa, East Africa, Southern Africa, and Central Africa. And quite naturally, I would like to say I am available here, together with our German colleagues.
Together, also in priority on agriculture, we have started a first rice qualification project in West Africa, which is Sierra Leone. We have allocated an envelope of 250 million, which we are now finalizing with the protocol of the Ministry of Agriculture. We have been invited to analyze the agriculture opportunities in RDC, following the visit of the President Tshisekedi, where we develop agriculture development model province by province, to start with La Chopo, where we have allocated 100 million private funding for agriculture cooperation and development projects. We will then welcome the delegation of Madagascar, the president and the government, end of this month in private, following his visit here in Brussels. And my main objective is to tell you all, come and join us in doing that, bringing the best of European, including German entrepreneurs, in supporting the renaissance of Africa, to start with agriculture. Thank you.
Thank you. There's in the very back. Yes, in the...
Merci, Monsieur le Modérateur.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Mr. Baruti. I'm an academic who works on peace building, but I also am involved in development cooperation. I don't have a question, but just something to say to my brothers Njai and the colleague from Europe. With regards to awareness building on agroecology, it's very good to work within a group and build on that group, but I think it's also very good to work with the media. It's important to negotiate with decision makers and governments so that public and private TV channels, etc., can continue to build awareness on these issues. Secondly, with regards to deforestation, Mr. Mansour, I think, should rest easy, because Abdoulaye Wade was saying that he had to cut down the trees to import rice. And France negotiating, who was the intermediary with the Asian countries, was saying that they were asking for too much in terms of groundnuts. So President Wade himself acknowledged that. Now there should be a difference between West Africa and Central Africa. In West Africa, the rice is very helpful, but in Central Africa, this can be exported. Now, the states, if we were to export coal, for example, to countries in the Gulf, countries could get up to 100 million in tax receipts.
Merci. Je vais donner la parole à Monsieur Ndiaye.
Let me give the floor to Mr. Ndiaye and Mr. Koulibaly, who a lot of questions were for him.
Okay, I know we are pressed for time, but to answer Michel, and I stand to be corrected by the expert biologists in the room, we use those fertility trees, and these are trees that live in symbiosis at the level of their roots with bacteria. That's a description in a nutshell. So these are bacteria that derive what they need in the air, in the atmosphere, and they make it available in the soil, and it becomes something that the plants can use. It's simple as that. You know perfectly well that this is the second main requirement for plants in addition to water. So if you have such bacteria and mushrooms, then they can help in this respect. As for the media, you asked the right question at the right time. We recently broadcast a movie on RTBF at some point last month, and that was a film on our activities. This was made in Senegal and Togo, and the film was broadcast on the RTBF network. I have a few clips of the movie that I can share with some of you, just to give you an idea of what farmers feel about those fertility trees and the results that we obtain in some countries. So what we try to do is to disseminate what we're doing through the media, even though we wanted to do that at the right moment. So we have 1,500,000 such trees planted in the farmers' plots, but Togo's been implementing it since '92, and they've planted more than 30 million trees. Thank you.
Merci. Oui, je voudrais aller dans le sens de Mansour.
Just to add to what Mansour just said, it's extremely important to use media, and we do it with the means at our disposal. So we produce short movies, maybe half an hour, just to document practices and success stories on agroecology. But these are not usually broadcast on national TVs. That's the problem, because you have to pay to get your film broadcast, and it's very expensive. To get a half-hour slot on a TV channel in Africa costs a few million CFA francs. And it's the same with private TV stations, which is why we can't disseminate what we do more. Perhaps we could have a civil society or farmers' organizations TV one day. But for now, we try to use social media, we try to broadcast our videos and other communication tools. I mentioned coal earlier, and our region is very different from the Central African region, where there's still a great deal of forest land. We don't have enough trees. in our region. And therefore, making coal is a very serious problem. There's soil degradation because there are no trees anymore. And the fact that farmers often have to cut down trees to make wood coal and sell it, they can make it, but if they continue to do that, then the soil degradation will continue. In other regions, perhaps it's a different context. There may be timber trafficking. But what I find most painful in our region is to see that some farmers don't have the choice. They can only cut down trees and make charcoal and make a living from it. So to stop the effects of climate change, we need to support activities in that sense. Whereas governments tend to act as though there was no problem. In the speeches, I talk about the need to restore ecosystems, fighting against climate change, but we don't invest in the poor, in the vulnerable groups who have no other way than chopping down trees. So that's the message I wanted to convey. Thank you.
Tadeo and Ellen want to add something very briefly. If not, I hand over to Mr. Hailu for concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Emil. We're almost at 1, so we don't have really much time. Just to say that this topic is extremely important, as we have seen this morning. We have seen the challenges that farmers are facing. I think we had excellent presentations from Ellen and others to clearly demonstrate that the conventional farming is not working for smallholder producers in Africa. And when you look at the big challenges of climate change, loss of biodiversity, and so on, that we need complete transformation of the food system. So I think that has been well established. And looking at agroecology, a number of issues came up in our discussions. Clearly, there is evidence to show that it's productive, it can work, it can compete with conventional farming practices, but I think there are clearly indication that it has to be context specific. We have to see how it works in different contexts. And there is a need in terms of policy, investment, legislation, and all kinds of support to mainstream agroecology, which doesn't seem to exist especially in developing countries. I think we had numerous examples where public extension systems, government policies, and investments are not supporting this whole approach to agroecology. So I think there is a real clear call for policy support from the donor community as well as from governments to try and mainstream agroecology and its different forms of application. We had some really good examples from agroforestry and other areas as well. And again, the issue of the challenge of transition, awareness at the public level as well as at the policy level. These were some of the issues that came up, and the need to co-create knowledge with farmers. I think we had really good examples of the participatory research and application that have been developed and that really engaged farmers and helped to move this agenda forward. So there are quite a number of really useful insights that we have heard from these presentations. Of course, in this kind of presentations, we always get the people who are already convinced. And I think also in the audience, many of us are convinced about the value of this. I think the challenge is how do you convince the skeptics? How do you convince the people who really make those decisions on investment and on enabling policies? So going forward, I think these are some of the issues that we should bring out. Earlier this morning, we heard about a number of big initiatives and policy processes that would encourage investment in agroecology, including the Green Deal of the EU and others, international processes, which I think will definitely generate opportunities in terms of investment, in terms of more research and education support in this area. So we had really excellent interaction. I just like to take this opportunity to thank our presenters, the chairs, Isolina chaired the first session, and Emil, for chairing those sessions, and also for the audience, for your active participation. I like, again, to thank my colleague Isolina and others in the Brussels office, who have been doing this excellent work. As you can imagine, have had a very positive feedback about the value of these briefings, and we very much thank the partners, the Commission, European Commission, DG DEVCO, ACP Secretariat, of course, giving us the facilities, and other partners as well. So we have been doing this for many, many years, since 2007. Unfortunately, we'll be bringing this to a close. We'll have one more briefing, which will be happening next month on the 26th of February. So that will be the last briefing that we have. But hopefully there will be other venues or opportunities to continue this extremely valuable briefing going forward. But we'll be having a formal, or at least a more focused way of celebrating the what has been achieved through the briefings, and what we think would be the continuous the future form of at least maintaining that we have some possibility of continuing the dialogue in the future in some other form. But at least as far as the briefing goes, the next one will be the last one, so we encourage you to join us. We'll be sending out announcements about what will be the topic. Initially, we are thinking of the future of farming, but we'll be doing more specific programming around that. So again, I'd like to thank everyone, the speakers and the participants, and I encourage you also to continue the discussions at the lunch break. Isolina, you want to say? Yes, Emil probably will say last word. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Henri, for these very excellent concluding remarks. I just want to give a takeaway message. We have heard the demand from farmers' organizations on what they want to see happening in the future, and that has not been listened to. We have heard about practical examples of what is possible to do, often with very little inputs, with very little resources. We've heard from the various presentations in this morning about the urgency and the importance of the challenges. And I think time is over to be questioning whether we should do this or that. There is very clear evidence on the way forward, and we should really go full steam ahead with us. And what we heard from Germany is very encouraging. We've heard other countries that are really embarking on that. That should really become the mainstream. And I think this opportunity this morning has been an excellent opportunity to show that we have gone a big step forward in moving in that direction. I want to thank CTA again for having facilitated this. Thank you.